The purpose of this video is to share a common theme or themes that I have been able to draw or extract from reading Audition by Kitamura and Deborah Levy's The Cost of Living, part of her series of autobiographies. Preparing for a conversation around these two books I thought would be problematic, because you see, Audition by Kitamura is a work of fiction, while Deborah Levy's The Cost of Living is a memoir, non-fiction. And to be able to make intertextual connections between these two books, I thought would be a little bit difficult, and especially considering that this instance in which I am trying to talk about these two books was actually a spur of the moment thing, and again, that in itself is not very correct, because you see, since I read them and I did not read them consecutively, a lot of thoughts around the issues in these books have percolated in my head, and I thought, they talk about two different things, and it's strange how these two different things that may, and we'll talk about this in shortly, that may on the surface look like they are on two opposite sides, can actually be one thing or mean one thing for any single person. So here I am. I want to share what I thought about these two books and the similarities, which I thought were which I think are really interesting, and also maybe hear your thoughts if you've read them or want to read them. Now, to talk about Kitamura's Audition, this is a work of fiction, as I said. It revolves around the story of an unnamed 49-year-old woman who, in the beginning of the story, we witness having a meeting with a much younger man. And a proposition presents itself to us that the society will naturally make up stories to explain this scenario where an older woman is meeting a much younger man. However, the story evolves to something deeper than that, not as superficial as the public might be led to believe. Our unnamed protagonists, we see, evolve and interact with different characters. Her husband, Thomas, the young man, Xavier, her friend, Annie, I think, as it turns out, her would-be or might-be son also has other relationships. So there are other extensions of her relationships with these immediate characters or immediate relatives. Now, we follow her interaction with these characters to a conclusion that doesn't exactly present itself as a conclusion, but as a question. And every interaction, every dynamics between husband, wife, son, wife, or woman and friend, or people and society, was might seem like all an act to present a thesis about the roles that we negotiate in our daily lives, whether as husbands, as wives, as mothers, as sons, as friends, and what do we surrender in playing out our roles. Kitamura presents, writes in a voice that is seemingly not omnipresent, but yet presents philosophical questions that give you the impression that the characters and their performances throughout the book might be something more weighty and has greater bearing on global truths truths about identity, truths about friendship, truths about motherhood, truths about fatherhood, perhaps. In Deborah Levy's Cost of Living, we meet her at a point where her husband, after many years, decides to divorce her. And this is what, around when she is clocking about 50, when she expects that things would be slowing down. But now, being thrown this curveball, she finds her life being thrown into a turmoil, and she needs to reinvent herself. So Deborah Levy here in this book, she writes very beautifully. She writes very in a humane manner, in a way that we meet her at a very vulnerable point, and we cannot help but empathize through her clear descriptions of different instances, different life events that follow this singular event of her divorce. And she writes not just, one crucial element in her narration is humor, the way she uses humor to make light very sensitive or emotional scenes or happenings in her life. And I appreciated this book especially because of the way that she handles her vulnerability, and the way that she brings her vulnerability to bear. It is not easy to talk about your life in this way, and I think it's one of the hardest things to actually laugh while you're going through so much emotionally, psychologically. And for me, one thing I would take out of her work in this book is how vulnerability can be a strength. And I don't mean this as a subject matter for a work of non-fiction or life writing, but as human beings, where we would maybe hold on to our egos, hold on to our personalities as a show of strength, but letting go, letting people speak to us, the lives of people around us, to impact us, can be a great form of self-love, and a way for us to navigate back to the center, back to normalcy after being thrown a curveball, as it were. Now, for me, after reading all these books, and while reading them, I took all these notes about the questions that they were asking, and it took me a while, and I think I've done many takes of video recordings speaking about these books individually. However, I thought that having done all these takes and regurgitated these ideas in my head, I was beginning to draw some common thread between these two works, albeit one being a work of non-fiction and another being a work of fiction. In Kitamura's Audition, we see where performance or performative relationships or dynamics play out. And the question again that she leaves in the in the book, in the later part of the book, that's more or less defines the catharsis that she builds up to. She asked the question where, in what manner do we view ourselves, where it seems as if it is more about how it is just as much as how we see ourselves as we perceive people, or how people perceive us. And in taking these notes, I thought, well, on one hand, we have a clear case study of performative relationships or performative dynamics, and on the other, we have a case of one who brings herself to bear. And I can't help but think that these two while they seem at at odds with each other, may actually be the same thing. Who says that being vulnerable? Who says that being bringing our hearts to bear, whether on the page, in life, in our relationships, cannot be an end in itself, cannot be as fulfilling in itself, as opposed to overthinking vulnerability, or thinking that it may be the opposite is the better path to toll. And I think for me, while taking these different notes, I could actually come up with a more like an original thought around vulnerability and performative relationships or dynamics, and find some nourishment in that thought, as a man, or as a human. And I think I have come out of reading these two books as a better person. It's quite strange. I didn't think I would. Even after I had the first instance of finishing these two books, I did not have this impression of them. But it's taken quite a while to make these connections, and I thought that speaking about these two themes that may look like opposites can actually be a singular subject matter being discussed as I'm doing through an intertextual lens, and I'm grateful for it. I think this is something I would like to do more of, to be able to read 2 books, 3 books, and see how they relate to each other. Now, I have to confess that it was not intentional. I did not read them with the intention of making those comparisons, but I'm grateful that I've been able to come away from reading these 2 books with this idea, and now I have another way of reading, and that itself is a great joy. So let me know in the comments what you think. Have you read these books, and if you by chance have read it too, let me know if you see any commonalities, or if you read any one of them or individually, whether the one Audition by Kitamura, or The Cost of Living by Deborah Levy, what you think of them. And let me know your thoughts around what your perspective might be about the thrust of these books individually. So again, until the next one, please share this video with any of your friends who enjoys talking about why storytelling matters.